Welcome to the Elliott Church. I just had to switch back to the pulpit. That was what was going on. We reached our quota for actual pulpit church this morning. As most of you know, because most of you were there, we had a big ordination service yesterday for Tara. So of course, she's not here, she's sleeping in. So we'll congratulate her again in absentia, then next week when she's here. Very exciting, and it was fun to take part, so that was cool. Oh, you know what's not on? The microphone. I'm still recovering from yesterday. Bear with me. So please take a look at your announcements. There's an insert in your order of service. There's a thank you for the food pantry. I see there's actually some stuff today as well out in front. And then you'll see two rather key items which normally we would have taken care of earlier in the year. But as we get back to, scare quotes normal, we need to do them. So you will note, in particular, the coffee hour is coming back starting after Easter. So please sign up for that. There's probably instructions as to how to do it in here, which would be easier than me telling you how, because I don't know unless I read it. And also, you'll note that we are once again looking for lay preachers. In the summer, sometimes I'm in church, sometimes I'm not, but traditionally we have lay people preach. We've been doing it now for about 10 or 11 years, picking up after a gap. There's about a gap of 15 years, but it was done before then as well. And, it gives us a chance to have different perspectives during that time, and me a chance not to preach quite so much. The last year we didn't do it because we were transitioning back to in-person, but normally that's what we do, as many of you will recall, and some of you have done it. So we are once again looking for lay preachers. Please talk to me or to Felicia. Sadly, Reverend Humphreys will, of course, no longer be working for us this summer. So talk to me and Felicia, and we'll figure it out. So those are the announcements, and we'll just get on with the service. So today is, it's the fifth sermon on the Aspects of Characters sermon series, because this one, number 4, Temperance, was snowed out. And I had written the sermon, and so I saved it because I would like you preaching after Tara's ordination. So that's what's going on today. And so it is number 4. And you'll see there's a little insert. It's the same each time, but if you want to catch up with, remind yourself what the series is about, it's there. And actually the reading list changes each time. At the bottom you'll see, I think in this case, 4 suggested books if you're like, I want to learn more about temperance, which I'm sure is a burning issue for all of you. But that is it. So let's think a little bit about temperance, about balance and moderation, and what we do to maintain that in our own lives. So our first hymn is in the red hymnal number 443. The hymnal calls it "Mine Eyes Have Seen the Glory." We know it as the Battle Hymn of the Republic. And normally we don't sing this in church, but I thought it would be fun for today. We originally associate this song with the Civil War, abolitionism, but it is sort of also kind of a mishmash of progressive movements of the 19th century, including temperance, the Temperance Movement, which became morphed into prohibition over time. That's where you get that first verse with the wherever he's trampled out the vintage where the grapes of wrath are stored. It's a direct reference to the Temperance Movement, not to the Civil War. The Temperance Movement started, it became something else, but it started actually as sort of an early suffrage or feminist movement. It was about domestic violence, and they felt that drinking promoted domestic violence, and that was where that all started. So churches like ours, we think of prohibition as being very conservative, but churches like ours, progressive churches, were at the forefront of the early temperance movement, trying to reduce alcohol consumption in this country. Julia Ward Howe was one of those people, and then over time, other movements got attached to the song because, of course, each of these led into another one. Temperance led into not just prohibition, but women's suffrage and abolitionism, and then the war happened. So you get the idea. So, let's sing that this morning, to sort of get us in the mood. Please rise. Please remain standing for the recitation of our covenant. In the love of the truth and in the spirit of Jesus, we unite for the worship of God and the service of all. Good job on that song, by the way. As we, Allison and I went to a concert a couple Sundays ago now, and the musician was like huffing and puffing through the pieces. The band was Kishibashi, the singer's name, Kishibashi, it's his band name, but it's one guy. And but he was talking about how, like, after 2 years, you're just out of shape from singing. And this song is actually really hard to sing. So I was like puffing and puffing this morning, and I thought, our readings today, there are 3, but I typed them out, so they won't take too long. The first one is from an article in the Atlantic Monthly, so if any of you get the Atlantic Monthly, you can go find it, by Arthur C. Brooks, called The Satisfaction Trap. Y'all know what a bucket list is, right? Does anyone not know? Okay, good. He talks about bucket lists. So. As we grow older in the West, we generally think we should have a lot to show for our lives, a lot of trophies. According to numerous Eastern philosophies, this is backwards. As we age, we shouldn't accumulate more to represent ourselves, but rather strip things away to find our true selves and thus to find happiness and peace. One practical way to whittle down our wants is to simply look at the counsel we get that is turning us into dissatisfied homo economicus, and then do the opposite. For example, many self-help guides suggest making a bucket list on your birthday so as to reinforce your worldly aspirations. Making a list of things you want is temporarily satisfying because it stimulates dopamine. But it also creates attachments, which in turn create dissatisfaction as they grow. I've instead begun to compile a reverse bucket list. Now, I'm not arguing here that there's anything wrong with visiting the exotic place you always dreamed of seeing, or running a marathon, or otherwise pushing your capabilities to do or make something difficult, professionally or otherwise. Work that feels more like a mission provides purpose. Travel can be inherently valuable and enjoyable. Learning a skill or meeting a challenge can bring intrinsic satisfaction. Meaningful activities pursued with friends or loved ones can deepen relationships. But ask yourself, when you're making your bucket list, whether the attraction of your list items, be they professional or experiential, derives mostly from how they will make others admire or envy you. These motivations will never lead to deep satisfaction. And now our next reading is from, I'm going to say Lieh-Tzu, it could be Lieh-Tzu, and I might say Lieh-Tzu in the sermon, you know how it goes. Lieh-Tzu or Lieh-Tzu, who was a Taoist philosopher. We remember Lao-Tzu most frequently. There's Xuan-Tzu, some people remember. Lieh-Tzu is like, I don't know, the George Harrison of Taoist philosophers. Quite gifted, a little bit out there, and somewhat forgotten at times. So, but this piece, I think, will also be self-explanatory. Some people think they can find satisfaction in good food, fine clothes, lively music, and sexual pleasure. However, when they have all these things, they are not satisfied. They realize happiness is not simply having their material needs met. Thus, society has set up a system of rewards that go beyond material goods. These include titles, social recognition, status, and political power, all wrapped up in a package called self-fulfillment. Attracted by these prizes and goaded on by social pressure, people spend their short lives tiring body and mind to chase after these goals. Perhaps this gives them the feeling that they have achieved something in their lives. But in reality, they have sacrificed a lot in life. They can no longer see, hear, act, feel, or think from their hearts. Everything they do is dictated by whether it can get them social gains. In the end, they spend their lives following other people's demands and never lived a life of their own. How different is this from the life of a prisoner? And finally, from Romans. Therefore, I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is. God's good, pleasing, and perfect will. For by the grace given me, I say to every one of you, do not think of yourself more highly than you ought, but rather think of yourself with sober judgment in accordance with the faith God has distributed to each of you. For just as each of us has one body with many members, and these members do not all have the same function, so in Christ we, though many, form one body. We, though many, form one body, and each member belongs to all the others. So please turn now to our responsive reading. 5, 6, 7. Which look a little familiar because I'm a multitasker. So those of you who were here yesterday know that I quoted it in the charge. I want to be with people who submerge in the task. Who stand in the line and haul in their places. The work of the world is common as mud. Botched, it smears the hands, crumbles to dust. But the thing worth doing well Greek amphoras for wine or oil, Hopi vases that held corn and are put in museums, but you know they were made to be used. The picture tries the water together and a person for work that is real. Let us take a moment now in silent prayer to pray for those in need of our prayers today. Now, as Jesus taught us, let us pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Now it's time for the offering, a free gift to a free church. Bring many gifts, and together build one church community. Please be seated. So, When I first set up this series on the aspects of character last summer, I was really looking forward to this topic of temperance. But now I kind of dread it. You see, at first when I was planning, it seemed to me to be kind of old school. I couldn't get the idea out of my mind of past ministers in the age of steam, haranguing congregations about the evils of drink. I thought of Carrie Nation smashing barrels, and then, of course, a little bit later, Al Capone and the Untouchables. But really, I was thinking of moments that were on the road to prohibition, which isn't what temperance is, as it turns out. Temperance is not prohibition. It isn't really mine eyes have seen the glory. And it turns out that temperance doesn't preach as easily as all of that. You see, we are conditioned in our world to be attracted to the all-or-nothing excitement of things like prohibition or cancellation, or of the many extremes in diet, exercise, sports, politics, and, of course, religion. But temperance, that is, moderation, isn't as cool. It just isn't as cool. Driving near the speed limit, for example. Not cool. Climbing a medium-sized mountain. It's okay. Limiting the size of your key lime pie while still having some desserts. Promoting dialogue instead of shouting among people who disagree. Just being reasonable. That is temperance. And it makes a lot of sense for living life. But it doesn't draw our attention in the same way. So it makes moments like this. Moments when we want to make worship compelling. A bit of a challenge. Because it is easier to preach to extremes. In fact, when we say somebody is being preachy, that's usually what we mean. We mean they are being extreme. That said, temperance should be compelling, shouldn't it? After all, we are at our wisest, at our most courageous, when we don't double down, when we keep ourselves open to change and to other opinions, and spread ourselves out in a broad foundation of experience. Massimo Pigliucci, who's on the reading list, and from whom we derived our list of virtues in the first place, describes temperance as a virtue that cultivates, in his words, strengths that protect against excess. Strengths that protect against excess. Any excess. And he gives examples of emotions or attitudes that help with this. Things like forgiveness and humility, prudence and self-control. Now, acts of temperance are frequently acts of resetting to move forward in life. Finding and respecting our limits. Getting a better understanding of that part of our lives that might drive us away from our own humanity. And in a world where extremes are cool, it is important for us to recognize that both the seeming freedoms of the commercial world and the prohibitions of traditional or conservative religion can be stumbling blocks to this moderation. Because at times they both push on us, granted in different directions and in different ways. They push on us from outside ourselves as other people's ideas of the good life. And they intervene in our own process of relating to the world, of finding our own joy and our own deeper identity. The culture at large does its best, in fact, to lure us away from our actual desires in favor of the culture's desire for the ranking of people and things, driving us to make even our leisure time a sort of competition for outside approval. We are urged to win our vacation, or even monetize our interests and hobbies, and if not monetize them, at least strive for excellence. It should be okay to be publicly bad at things from time to time, even things we enjoy. That's actually very hard to do, because we use these things as a means of self-promotion. The writer Arthur C. Brooks, in a recent article from Atlantic Monthly, talks about this in terms of the bucket list, urging us to ask ourselves whether the attraction of our bucket list items derives mostly from how much they will make others admire or envy us. We must ask whether the attraction of our bucket list items derives mostly from how much they will make others envy or admire us. As someone with a very active bucket list and a very active Instagram presence, I feel that one pretty closely. In our reading from Lieh-Tzu, we are warned of what happens if we succumb to those influences in a quest for worldly success, or at least for keeping up appearances. In reality, Lieh-Tzu notes, people who live that way have sacrificed a lot in life. They can no longer see, hear, act, feel, or think from their hearts. Maybe this is why Pigliucci and Paul both lead with attitudes of forgiveness and humility. Now, Paul, in his letter to the Romans, tells us that just as each of us has one body with many members, so all of us form one body. And as members of that body, he concludes, we belong to each other. And this actually might be the best place to start. The practice of temperance, whether it is refraining from drinking in excess, as it was traditionally, or from relentless self-promotion at the expense of our coworkers and loved ones, or arbitrary judgment of people we don't know, or any other of the many, many failings we humans discover in ourselves. The practice of temperance requires from us the ability to see ourselves as part of something larger and to find joy. We are special, sure, but no more special than anyone or anything else. Our faith journey requires us, as we have talked about here many times, requires us to see ourselves in relationship with creation, to forgive others and ourselves for transgressions as we work to heal whatever damage we have done. We need to be, in the words of Marge Piercy, people who submerge in the task. In essence, she is telling us that we live in community, and temperance is part of that communal connection. We must not only have the courage to be, but the courage to be together. And when we act with an attitude of moderation, communicating from heart to heart, we are finding that courage. We are doing something for ourselves, granting ourselves the power to live from the depths of our own shared souls. From the depths of our own shared souls. And we are doing something for the world, reminding each other that there is another way, a way of caring and love. Human beings, ourselves included, are a tangled mass of contradictions, with competing high visions and animal drives. We need, in the words of the prophet Micah, to do justice, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with God, trusting that though we will fall short, the God who is love will help us get up again. so we will keep on building and becoming. Now, as we prepare for communion today, committing once again to the shared journey, let us think about balance. Let's think about temperance, where we have found that strength. And we still feel a little unsure of our steps. If you're curious as to what they're doing, I can tell you. There's a geocache under the ring. So, now that we've gotten through the sermon part, we can have communion. They won't be confused. This is nothing like yesterday, by the way, with the kid. So please turn now to or pull out your teal insert for our service of communion. Let us come together to celebrate the story of Jesus, to connect to that story and to each other through the sharing of bread and wine. These simple things have been through the ages a sign of unity, a source of strength, and a witness to the power of sacrificial love. Let us now join together in silence for our private prayers of confession. Now let us join in the responsive prayer. Your steadfast love, O God, extends to the heavens, your faithfulness to the clouds.
Your righteousness is like the heavens, your judgments are like tree. You save demons and animals like the cloud.
How precious is your steadfast love, O God! All people may take refuge in the shadow of your wings.
They feast on the abundance of your house, and you give them drink from the river of delights.
For with you is the fountain of life. In your light we see light.
Continue your steadfast love to those who know, and your salvation to every heart.
Do not let the foot of the arrogant tread on me.
For the hand of the wicked drive me away.
A reading from the Gospel of Luke. If I can make it come into focus. There we go. When the hour had come, Jesus took a place at the table with the apostles. Jesus said to them, I have longed to eat this Passover with you before I suffer. I tell you, I will not eat again until everything is fulfilled in the reign of God. Then taking a cup of wine, Jesus gave thanks and said, take this and share it among you. I tell you, I will not drink wine from now on until the reign of God comes. Then he took a loaf of bread, and when he had given thanks, he broke it and gave it to them, saying, this is my body, which is given for you. Do this in remembrance of me. Eat this bread in remembrance of Jesus. he did the same with the cup after supper, saying, "This cup that is poured out for you is the new covenant in my blood." Drink this wine in remembrance of Jesus and those who have been near and dear to us. May we be reminded here of our highest aspirations and inspired to bring our gifts of love and service to the altar of humanity. May we know once again that we are not isolated beings, but connected in mystery and miracle to the universe, to this community, and to each other. Amen. Now please join in our final hymn, hymn number 126, "Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing." Please rise. Of every blessing. glimpses of eternity, brief moments of insight. Let us gather them up for the precious gifts that they are, and renewed by their grace, move boldly into the unknown. Amen, and blessed be.